Anyone out there complaining about the cold? Thankfully, being super inspired by the Ice Queen herself, Adrienne Jezick, I have a much greater appreciation for all of the incredible metabolic processes that go down when I'm cold. And now I'm embracing it. Adrienne Jezick is a health enthusiast and entrepreneur who transformed her life through deliberate cold exposure. After being diagnosed with three autoimmune conditions in 2012, including Hashimoto's, Eosinophilic Esophagitis, and Urticaria, Adrienne sought to improve her health and well-being. Her journey led her to discover the power of ice baths, which enabled her to reverse all traces of her autoimmune conditions and removed the need for her prescription medications. In addition to her personal transformation, Adrienne has also created a sensory, immersive, mindful meditation technique that can be used during the stress response in the cold, which can be used anywhere in life you experience extreme stress. The Morozoko method. Her innovative approach to cold exposure and mindfulness led her to co-found the Morozoko Forge, an electric ice bath company which has quickly gained recognition for its cutting-edge technology and commitment to health and wellness. Adrienne's passion for health and wellness, coupled with her entrepreneurial spirit and dedication to innovation, made her a leader in the field of cold exposure and mindfulness. Her personal story is a testament to the power of perseverance, determination, and an unwavering commitment to living a healthy and fulfilling life. Get ready to embrace the cold with Adrienne Jezick. Oh, the Ice Queen herself. I'm so grateful that we're talking. I'm actually experiencing my first winter in Colorado in like 8 years, and it's kind of miserable. But with your inspiration, it's less miserable. Where are you at right now? Are you in Arizona or?
I'm in Austin, Texas, which is where I'm based.
Oh, nice. Oh man.
Yeah, and we are getting some freezing temperatures. It's going to be down to about 12 to 17 degrees in a couple of days
What?
overnight.
In Texas?
So with wind chill, I think we're looking at about 40 mile per hour, 50 mile per hour winds.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah, very dry, very cold, very dangerous.
yeah, that's
We go.
crazy. I can't imagine it being that cold in Texas. Like I've lived in Texas. It was so hot. But anyways, and you're from Florida, yeah? I remember
Well,
in
I
your
was born in Pennsylvania, but I grew up in Florida, lived in Hawaii for a few years. I spent the last 20 years in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been in Austin for a little over a year, full time.
nice, nice. Yeah, I was so inspired by your story. This growing up in Florida and being in Arizona, and you're still like, okay, I am gonna do this ice bath
Yeah,
situation.
I don't want to live anywhere it snows, but the cold quite literally changed my life. So,
Yeah, okay, yeah. Being diagnosed with three autoimmune conditions, this was back in 2012. I'm just curious to hear, how did you first get the benefits of ice baths in your vortex? Like what, how did this even come about?
well, it was everything that I was reading, whether it was fiction or nonfiction. In the nonfiction sector, it was Nassim Taleb, Anti-Fragile, Aubrey Marcus, Own the Day. I was reading about Scott Carney, What Doesn't Kill Us. And in nonfiction, even Ernest Hemingway would talk about how when he didn't light the coals in his Paris apartment because he was poor, he was more focused, more creative, and it just spurned this, creativity, this movement within him that the comfort did not. And so it was like a lot of different things that I was consuming at the time were pointing to cold as a healing modality.
That's fascinating. Yeah, the benefits seem to be too good to be true. It's absolutely endless, right? There's research too. It's like cancer cells are less likely to grow. And I remember doing a recording for NutriSense, trying to show how my blood sugar goes up when I eat ice cream. And I happened to be visiting Colorado. It was freezing outside. This was a couple of years ago. And my blood sugar wasn't going up. And I was so confused and learning that being cold, like eating the ice cream and then going outside, walking in the cold, I realized like my blood sugar wasn't spiking because it was so cold. And
Yeah.
is
And
there,
if you ever hear Ben Greenfield talk about it, he'll tell you that dessert, specifically homemade carrot cake made by his wife and kids, is like his kryptonite. He wants to eat the whole darn cake. And so what he'll do is he'll take an ice bath and then he'll go eat half a carrot cake. He's like, if I'm going to do it, let's make it with the most pure ingredients possible. Let's like really go to town. And then let's also prepare the body for that type of ingestion.
Right. Gosh, so many benefits. And is there anything like quickly touching on your story? It's just mind-blowing to me. I'd love for you to share, at least maybe recently. Have you waned off a little bit? Is it really non-negotiable for you? Like, do you notice symptoms of any kind coming back when you don't do it? If you ever don't do it, like, what's your
Well, in the beginning, it was just a really hard practice. In the beginning, it was really challenging for me to even approach the cold. And so, this is also why I developed the Morozko method, the sensory immersive mindful meditation to help you through that discomfort in an ice bath experience. And when I say that, I'm talking 33 degrees, I'm talking as cold as I can get it without it fully frozen over. And that's for 2 minutes, full submersion up to the neck with hands and feet in. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. And what it did for my body and the ways that it impacted me was so profound that I knew from my first ice bath, like this was just going to be a part of my life. And my first ice bath was only 9 seconds. If you Google Adrienne's first ice bath, you're going to see me doing this violent 9 second experience of an ice bath. And that was enough to change the entire course of my life. So in the beginning, it was a daily practice and sometimes multiple times a day. So if I was going through a histamine reaction or had an allergy to something, I maybe would need to get in a couple of times in the day.
wow.
Within the first 2 years, there was no trace of autoimmune in my system. So all my labs came back normal. Everything was within range. I hadn't told my doctor that I'd gotten off all prescription medications. I was just like, read my labs, tell me how I'm doing. She's like, I want to keep everything status quo. And I was like, well, guess what? She wrote it down in my chart that I was practicing cold water therapy and extended fasting. But what she didn't do and what she wasn't going to do was tell the other dozen people sitting in her waiting room or the other people on her client roster that there are alternative methods to healing that are showing proven effective with autoimmune. But doctors aren't going to do this. And so it was that time that I took it upon myself that I was going to share the healing benefits of the cold with anyone who would listen. So by the time I received that clean diagnosis, I was still practicing regularly, anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 7 times a week. I don't personally think that we should do anything every day other than breathe.
Mm,
When I see these challenges of 7 days of cold, 30 days of cold, 365 days of cold, I'm like, you're not checking in with your body. So that's where I am in my practice now, is I'm checking in with my body. Is it my little monkey mind saying, I don't wanna, or is it my brain, or is it my body saying, today's not the day?
oh, this message is so important for me, and I'm sure a lot of people hearing that in just 9 seconds, you can have benefit. And just in general, especially with something, um, it could be harmful, right? These things. And it, of course, over exercising, anything that, we think is healthy, it could be harmful if we overdo it. I actually have a confession around this. Like, I'm the type of person that gets a little over inspired, maybe. And it's just the practice of actually listening, like, what is our body really needing right now, and let go of this. If you don't do it, you're a failure. If you don't do it for 2 full minutes, you're not good enough. Like, you're not going to get any benefit, right? So hearing that you did it for 9 seconds and just hearing the reminder of, okay, don't do it every single day. Personally, being so inspired by you, I had a pretty stressful day and it had snowed a lot. And one afternoon, I drove to the Boulder Creek. It was frozen over. There was snow on the ground. And you had told me, you were like, make sure everything's set up. And sure, I had a towel, I had like a change of clothes. I was gonna go get a hot chocolate after or something. And I broke through the first layer of ice so that I could like get in. And it was like 19 degrees out. It was actually colder outside than it was in the water. And I was playing, everybody must listen to the podcast, your guided meditations. Like, that was really what was helping me. I was blasting the heat in the car, doing the meditations. I'm calm, I'm strong, this is good for me, like really, really excited. Um, it wasn't until after I was too cold to like get my shoes back on. I swear the it was just it was debilitatingly cold the walk from the creek back to my car. I just yeah, I haven't cold plunged since then. I'm honestly like I thought I was going to lose my feet. Like I just couldn't put my shoes back on. And the amount of like shame and fear and just mm, guilt I kind of have been having around like kind of that being of a failure of an experience, it being like I was way, way, way too cold. Like I couldn't get warm afterwards. I felt like I totally lost my Zen mode afterwards. And I'm curious to hear when it comes to this, like overdoing it. Is there anything that we can do to further track that or to further check in with ourselves, like whether it be a wearable or is it literally just a voice in your head that's like today is a good day, today is not? Like how do you um is there
So
any
the goal really is 2 minutes. The goal is really like giving yourself a solid 2 minutes so that you can have that initial fight or flight reaction and then calmly carry yourself through that. And you say you didn't get warm afterwards. Are you still not warm?
Ooh, this is a good question. I'm warm now, but to be completely honest, I feel like my hand, like my right hand particularly, I don't know if it's ever going to be the same. It feels kind of like
And
strange,
so think
I think.
about this. Think of how much we do. So you're probably right-handed. Think of
Yeah.
how much you do with your hands in a day. How much energy transpires through your hands in any given day, right? So the truth is you did get warm. The truth
Mm,
is it was a more shocking situation than you had prepared for. And
mhm,
now that you understand what it is, you'll give it a little bit more reverence. The
mhm.
truth is that even though you're feeling this disconnectedness in your hand, this is an opportunity for you to treat your hand. Have you massaged it?
Mm.
Have you even thought to massage your own hand to give it that attention that it so is craving right now? And I do think that it's a regular check in with the self. It is a regular check in with why am I doing this? Because as humans, we have this tendency to, oh, if 2 minutes feels great, then 10 minutes, I'm going to feel like Superman.
Right.
And this is a minimum effective dose practice. So if you're new to the practice, if you're still struggling with cold, if you're plunging in nature when it's 19 degrees outside and you said, you had to break through the ice. So that's moving water underneath. That water could have been 27 degrees.
Mm,
That
mhm,
water could have been below freezing. So you wouldn't stay in there 2 minutes. You might get in, submerge, sit down, calm down, then stand up and get out. And that might be 15 to 30 seconds.
mm, mhm.
So it's the reverence with which we're approaching this practice too, giving it the respect that it deserves, understanding like if we've never done this before, there needs to be a baby step sort of approach.
Yeah.
And there is no shame around it was only 9 seconds or it was only 30 seconds or I got out and I was really cold. Like grace, first of all, first and foremost, grace. You did it. Way to go. You did it. And you did warm up. And it might have discombobulated you for a while, right? You didn't plan that extra time
Yeah.
for the warm up or not being prepared to grab your keys and operate a car. And this is something that I talk about when plunging in nature. First of all, always bring a friend.
Mm,
Anything can happen. Like, what if you had stepped into that water and you stepped on something and you're bleeding all over the place? Like, always bring a friend when you're plunging in nature. Always allow time for the warm up afterwards before operating heavy machinery, your
mm,
car, your motorcycle, your bicycle, even. If your plan is to get out of that creek or that river or Boulder Creek, whatever it is, and then walk to your car, how far is that distance?
this is like so yeah. This is so um important. I was just so determined. I was so determined and excited. I felt like I really needed it too. I was like, this is gonna feel so good. And it did. And I loved it. I was like, this
And
is
it did. So even though you were a little discombobulated, even though it took a while to warm up, you can look back on this and say, here's what I've learned from the experience. And was it still a beneficial experience for me?
right, right. This is so beautiful to get to reflect with you about this. Like I was like, maybe it's just so funny how my mind just is like, okay, no more ice baths. Like ice baths aren't for me.
Not for me.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly there is like a lot going on that I could have done better to prepare. Like it was for sure a really important learning experience in a lot of ways. Oh gosh, yeah, you're so eloquent and beautiful, your wisdom around this. I really amazing. I hope somebody else
Well,
relates.
I mean, it comes from trial by fire, right? There isn't anything you're doing that I haven't done. And so it's, there wasn't, especially when I got into this practice 6 years ago, there was nothing out there to say this is how to
Right.
do it. These are the ways, these are the methods, the techniques. I mean, this is partly why I created the Morotsko method because there was this breathwork practice followed by a cold plunge. So that's what Wim Hof is. It's a breathwork practice followed by a plunge and cold experience. Well, that didn't help me through the experience. And if anything, that breath work put me into this state of anxiety so that when I was meeting the cold, I was trying to meet it with this competition, this kind of yang energy. And as a
Mhm.
sick person, as a previously sick person with autoimmune, who had nothing left to give, who was at their complete wits' end, I didn't have that yang energy. So I needed to find a way to meet the cold with calm, nurturing surrender, that more yin energy.
Oh, I love
Because
this.
the cold was already going to bring out the fight or flight. The cold was already going to put me into that state of stress. Like, here's the other misconception about cold. People think, well, it's going to spike my cortisol, it's going to spike my adrenaline. No, it doesn't. The only spike you get in cortisol and adrenaline is prior to getting in. When
Mm.
you're worried in a state of anxiety based on experience of the past and something in the future that has not yet happened. So this is where the Morotsko method comes in as this guided meditation to help you drop into yourself, into your body, get out of that anxious anxiety head state, get
Mhm.
into the solid groundedness of your body, and choose this practice with mindful intention. So if you're doing that and you're checking in, you're going to know the difference of, like I said, your monkey mind saying, I don't wanna, and your body's saying, girl, we got this. Or guy, we got this. Hey, you, we got this.
Mhm. This is so nourishing hearing this from a woman. It does feel like quite a masculine, like, oh, we're gonna do this. It's like so that intense energy you're talking about. And I love hearing it's so true. I actually was wearing a glucose monitor, and you're right. Like I get a spike whenever I'm like really stressed. Like I get a spike. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it definitely is that moment before when we're just like, oh God, oh God. Oh man, I love that. That's in so many areas of life, whether it be like people trying to just go for a run in the morning. I think it's that hesitation right before, like going for just whatever health promoting behavior, the hesitation of like, just
Yeah, we get it sometimes before we get into our car, before driving in rush hour traffic, or before a big meeting at work, or jumping on stage to share our health benefits and the things that we've learned in life. And we have a choice. We have a choice to breathe deep into our bellies, to regulate our own nervous systems. Like, we have that power. Most of what we experience in this dysregulated state is reactivity and patterns. So it's patterns that have served us somewhere in the past that we've developed that our brain's just like, oh, when this happens, I go to this. So one of the things I love most about the cold is the way that it reforms those driving patterns and habits and practices in our lives.
okay, this is gold what you're touching on. There must be some bridge that was formed between all of this incredible wisdom and that 9-second first ice bath, between you really
Well,
regulating
6 years worth,
your nervous
6 years worth, and thousands of clients, and working
system.
with, I mean, hundreds of people with autoimmune, with cancer, with PTSD. I work closely with veterans, first responders, sober living facilities. So this has been a practice for me in learning how to use natural ancient healing modalities to address the behaviors and the habits and the patterns that we develop of today.
Mm. Do you happen to have any, um, horror stories with this? Or is there any
Horror
like,
stories with the ice.
Yeah, like it just blows my mind, right? These critical care, these people who it seems like, oh, let's be gentle. Oh, maybe don't go in that, don't do anything too much, right? With people in these different conditions. Um, and yeah, with yourself too, or with just your experience. Is there anybody that you would say, oh my gosh, this person, it's not good for them? I
Oh,
love,
yes. Yes. So if you're a woman who is missing cycles, if your cycle's not consistent, you're missing cycles and your BMI is low, it's not for you.
hmm
It's not for you. Get back on track with your BMI, get back on track with your cycle, and then you can approach cold. In the meantime, you should really be focusing on heat. Anyone with a pacemaker or a port. So people who get regular chemo or other type of infusion treatments who have a port or a pacemaker, I don't put people like that in the cold. Pregnancy is a weird one. Any woman I've ever spoken with who has done it while pregnant has had a profound and incredible experience. I've also spoken with women who started the practice and got pregnant after years of infertility and years of IVF. And then all of a sudden they quit it all. They decide they're just going to focus on their health and feeling safe in their bodies. They start taking ice baths, and within weeks, they're pregnant because they're creating an
wow.
environment of safety within the body. There
Wow.
are also the hidden things that we don't see. So if you were to ever practice deliberate cold exposure and get a really tight, terrible headache at the back of the base of the neck,
Huh.
go get checked out by your doctor. That is an inflammation thing, that is a blood thing. Just go get checked out. It's a good idea, but we don't find that out until you get in the cold and you have that experience. Anyone with any type of blood clotting disease, you do not want to throw a clot. So this is going to completely constrict your vascular system and then contract it. But in that constriction, if you have a clotting disease, you could throw a clot, and that's not something that we want. So if you have a blood clotting disease, you really want to check with your physician prior to going in. Also, epilepsy. Partly the reason that we avoid it with epilepsy is we know nearly nothing about what causes epilepsy or why it happens. There are hundreds of different types of seizures that are labeled as epilepsy. And so it's really that stress and that shock to the system that we want to avoid because we don't understand it yet. And at the very least, you can always fill a bowl with ice and add water and splash your face. You can
Mm,
always put an ice cube on the center of your wrist, and that will help calm you down and bring you into a present state. So there are things that you can do. Our bodies are designed. We have the mammalian dive response specifically so that when we splash water on our face, our system calms us down. So when you're upset and someone says, well, go splash some water on your face, there's some science behind that. You can learn about that in the book, The Blue Mind by Wallace J. Nichols. So we're getting there in the science of it. But really, this is an ancient healing modality that many cultures have never given up.
wow.
It's just our modern industrial revolutionized culture that said as soon as we figured out central heat and air, we no longer had to expose ourselves to discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. This is
And we
so,
need that discomfort for resilience.
we do. We do. I think we're so pacified as a society. Everything is so comfortable and convenient oh, and it's not better or worse to be in there for 2 minutes or splash ice water on your face. Like I think that this is so beautiful. The message of this is an act of self-care. This is a healing modality. I'm curious the word morozoko. Is that, could you explain that word by chance?
So Morozko is like Father Winter or Jack Frost in Russian mythology. And the fairy tale basically goes that if you can face the cold with stoicism, if you meet the cold with stoicism and grace, it will bestow great gifts upon you. And there's a whole fairy tale around it. You can go to the Morozko Forge YouTube channel and watch the YouTube video on the name Morozko and where it comes from. But long story short, if you can meet the cold with stoicism and grace, it will bestow great gifts upon you.
Beautiful. And okay, hearing all of the clear benefits, right? Clearly some people think you, yes, underweight. If your menstrual cycles are a little out of whack, please be gentle with yourself. Don't be ice plunging right now. But it sounds like you don't, no like embarrassing stories or things gone wrong come to mind, that kind of thing?
Yes, they do exist. None that I'm personally familiar with, only things I've seen on TV
Wow.
or
Okay,
on the
great.
internet.
Well,
And
that's reassuring.
nothing that I think is actually relevant to the practice. So I
Mm,
think that's the most important thing is like the things that I have seen are not typically relevant to the practice. They're typically relevant to what's going on around the practice. And so
totally.
people love to post these things or to share these things about, oh, this is dangerous. And, I have what's the Oh, the name is
Yeah.
escaping me right now when your fingers go white and it hurts really
Is it
bad.
Raynaud's disease?
Raynaud's, thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
Mhm.
So there's a common misconception that if you have Raynaud's, you should just avoid the cold because the cold is what hurts. Well, I know four people specifically, two of them doctors, who have fully reversed all trace of Raynaud's by practicing deliberate cold exposure. So
Wow.
even sometimes approach the cold and say, you know what, I just don't have it in me today. I'm really depleted. I don't have anything left to give. The cold is where you put it all back.
Ooh.
But when you are fully depleted and you have nothing left and there is nothing for you to do, go put it back by taking some cold exposure.
Oof. Wow. Do you think that when I had COVID, it would have been a good idea to?
I think as long as you're running a fever, that is the body's way of healing itself. And so we don't
Mhm.
want to stop the fever process.
Ooh,
I
okay.
think if you have a head cold or a sinus infection or an allergic reaction and you're not running a fever, absolutely go for that anti-inflammation. Go for the feel-good chemicals of the norepinephrine and dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, all this stuff that's going to regulate you.
Beautiful. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. And the forge that you're talking about, is there anything, how can people get this? How can people like,
So you can go to morozkoforge.com and purchase a product, or you can go to morozkoforge.com to the Find a Morozko tab and find a local commercial facility near you.
wow, that's amazing. And there, these facilities are there, how many are there around? Are they literally everywhere? Like, how do you?
All over the US, working at
Oh,
getting in many more places. And then if you're interested in the technique, learning the trademark Morozko method technique, I host in-person workshops as well as an ongoing online course for
so
certification. And I have certified guides in this technique throughout the world.
I want to explain to people this forage, isn't it a ice bathtub that's like really convenient for people? It's not like I feel like people at home buying all of this ice and putting it in their bathtub or in like a blow up
The
pool.
Morozko Forge is an electric ice bath. It is plug and play. You plug it in, you fill it with water, you set your temperature with a digital temperature controller, and it will make its own ice. It
Wow.
is full micron filtration with ozone disinfection, so you're not going to use any harsh chemicals. We're the only ones in the market that you're not adding any harsh chemicals to. Also, because when I was sick, I didn't want to sit in a vat of harsh chemicals. I just wanted to be in clean water. So it is a fully micron filtered ozone disinfected machine. You set it and forget it.
You're
Just
amazing.
like a hot tub, but the total opposite.
That's so awesome. Oh, I
And
hope
we deliver all over the world.
all over the world you can get one
All over the
delivered.
world.
All right, people, no excuses. I know we're all like, oh no, ice. It's probably really good for me. Everyone's like, oh no, we got to do this. Oh,
Yep.
very
And if
good.
you're interested, whether you're new to the practice or whether you're a seasoned veteran, whether you have a commercial facility or you're just a solo practitioner, there's something in the Morozko method for you. You can find these meditations on Spotify under the Morozko method. You can find them on the Insight Timer app. You can also find them on my direct website, adriennejezick.com. And that's also where you can click on the Morozko Method tab and find all of the upcoming workshops. So I've got one coming up in Austin, Texas, February 9th. I have one coming up in Denver, Colorado in April. I think it's the 13th or the 14th. I forget which.
Woohoo!
But these are limited classes. They are intimate settings because we do learn a lot. You will learn literally everything there is to know about deliberate cold exposure.
Oh my gosh, exciting. Well, I'm not going to miss out on the one in Denver in April. That's so amazing. I'm going to link all of these links down below. Is there any final words of wisdom? I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah, whether you're taking a cold shower or splashing your face or taking a full-on ice bath or plunging in nature, remind yourself this is what cold feels like. This is a physical sensation that most of us have never experienced. And by reminding ourselves or telling ourselves that this is what that sensation is, our brain's able to make this nice little file folder and say, oh, okay, this is a physical sensation. This is what cold feels like. It does not have to be an emotional experience. It does not have, you do not have to have an emotional reaction to the feeling of being cold or hot. So just remind yourself, this is what cold feels like.
Beautiful. And if this woman who grew up in Florida and was living in Phoenix, Arizona, can heal herself and continue to deliberately expose herself to the cold, I think that we can do it as well. You
We
inspire
can all
us.
do this. Yeah.
We can all do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
What an incredible conversation. This woman is such an inspiration for me. Okay, next time I go into Boulder Creek and it's frozen over, I will definitely bring a friend and a lot more tools to help myself get warm, including some slip-on shoes, maybe, some things that are easier so I don't have to walk barefoot in the snow. Anyways, I really hope that this inspired you to take care of yourself. Doing an ice plunge for 10 minutes every single day. No, 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 no. And I'm telling this to myself. I've got to listen to my body, right? I've got to be more reverent. And just this is everything that I've been aiming to teach with Feed Your Power is that we do get to absolutely love ourselves, whether or not we do the ice bath, whether or not we stay in the water for 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it is. We can hop in and hop out, and that is still super beneficial. Just splashing some cold water on our face, that is super beneficial. Right? So, curious your takeaways from this. Please do make sure to tell Adrienne how much this inspired you, especially coming from a woman, right? With all of this information about ice baths. I love it. So hit her up, let her know what you thought about this. Hit me up on Instagram at vitamin.katie. I would love to hear and get in touch with you as well. And let's go freeze our asses off, all right? Bye.